helped us in that regard. We are 1 year after the publication of the Fusion GPS dossier today, and all we know truly about it, all we've been able to actually verify, is that it was paid for by Democrats and that the FBI in some form or fashion relied upon it. And to me, that's deeply troubling, that you got the FBI functionally working with the Democratic Party through the Fusion GPS company to undermine our democracy and undermine the President of the United States. That's why the oversight work of the Judiciary Committee is so important, and it's why we'll continue to point out the anti-Trump bias that has intractably infected this entire investigation.
I do want to just be clear, as a point of fact, according to Simpson's testimony, to your point that the dossier was important to the FBI investigation, certainly it is part of it. However, we understand that the FBI believed Chris's information, referring to Chris Steele, this is a quote from the testimony, might be credible because they had other intelligence that indicated the same thing.
The dossier was absolutely used as part of the FBI's ability to gain a warrant to basically spy on members of the Trump campaign. We know, coming from the mouths of members, senior members of the FBI who testified, both Comey and McCabe, that the only part of the dossier that they were able to confirm that was actually factual was that Carter Page had actually traveled to Moscow. Everything else in the dossier, apparently they did not talk about that. They did not confirm. There are a number of sources that are alarmed about this, particularly people within law enforcement who are concerned that they were using this dossier to find a way to look into the Trump campaign.
It's also important to point out this. The New York Times reports the Russia investigation began because the Australian government contacted the FBI because a Trump foreign policy advisor said that Moscow had thousands of emails about Hillary Clinton. And that happened in May. And that happened in May. So there are a lot of things that came into this Russia investigation. It would be unfair and inaccurate to say that it was simply because of the dossier.
Well, there are only two fact patterns to believe. Either you believe that an entire counterintelligence investigation was started because George Papadopoulos was running his mouth in a London pub about the fact that Vladimir Putin hated Hillary Clinton, a widely known fact, or the far more likely scenario, and that is that the FBI had become so politicized that when Democrats had paid for opposition research, that when that very opposition research company had employed Nellie Orr, the wife of Bruce Orr, a senior official at the Department of Justice, that became the document that was the basis for FISA warrants to spy on Americans. And if I'm wrong, Erin, if it's really that this whole thing got started because a drunk George Papadopoulos was running his mouth at a London pub, then why doesn't the FBI come clean? Why don't they just tell us that the dossier was not used as an intelligence document, and that would clear everything up?
They
but they
are
won't
investigating.
Tell us that
they are investigating. But here's another point. Here's another point. If they're so political, why 11 days before the election would the FBI director announce he's looking back into the Hillary Clinton emails? If they're so political, why 11 days before the election would the FBI director announce he's looking back into the Hillary Clinton emails?
Now, you remember when Comey reopened Hillary's case in October before the election, right after he exonerated her? Everyone started saying, look, this guy is so fair. Folks, he wasn't being fair. The NYPD was going to out him when they found classified information on dirtbag pervert Anthony Weiner's laptop from Uma and Hillary.
Political, why 11 days before the election would the FBI director announce he's looking back into the Hillary Clinton emails? I just want to play for you.
Because he was worried there was going to be more proof. He was worried there was going to be proof on the Anthony Weiner emails.
The vice president and a Fox News anchor had to say about what Jim Comey did 11 days before the election. The same Jim Comey that you're trying to say is politicized and in bed with Democrats. Here it is.
It took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made.
I know I speak on behalf of my running mate when I say we commend the FBI for having the courage to reopen this case.
This news has turned the entire political universe on its head. It has given Donald Trump new life for his campaign, and it has given Hillary Clinton and her campaign new reason to worry.
Guts, courage, giving Donald Trump new life. That's the FBI that you say was biased.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Let's assume that James Comey hadn't given that revelation days before the election, and there had been evidence of criminal wrongdoing from Hillary Clinton on Huma Abedin's hardware that was involved in the Anthony Weiner investigation. Like, this isn't a consequence of the activities of Republicans. It was terrible, terrible carelessness. It was criminal negligence, in my opinion, on the part of Democrats to mishandle this classified information. And James Comey was covering his tracks because that could have been a circumstance where we had massive criminal conduct right before the election that the American people would not have known about. So that is hardly evidence that James Comey was an apolitical actor. But by the way, if he was an apolitical actor, we should all believe the fact that the Fusion GPS dossier is salacious and unverified, the very words of James Comey.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I appreciate your time, Congressman
Thank you, Erin.
She's Louisiana hot sauce, hotter than a fireball, smoother than